So this is how you tweet, huh? So now I just press tweet. Do I press this?
That's
Is
that's
that
how
me
that's
tweeting?
how you tweet.
Whoa. I did it.
Yay!
Okay.
All right.
It's always dangerous for a historian to talk about contemporary life because we haven't had much time to absorb what's going on and not much time to reflect upon it, analyze it, and have the documentary material to interpret the dynamics of modern life. But one might argue that the early years of the 21st century suggest that we're living in an era of connectivity. Connectivity characterized by the globalization of the economy, the way in which America's multinational corporations are now in every corner of the globe and in some respects are generating more revenue abroad than they are from the United States markets. It's also an era, of course, of connectivity in terms of multimedia technologies and the way in which the immediacy of communication has accelerated the pace and the tone and the tenor of modern life. Take, for example, the extraordinary terrorist assaults on New York City and Washington, D.C. at 9/11. Those attacks were facilitated by the ability of the terrorists to communicate across the globe instantaneously. Those attacks were facilitated by technologies that enabled their bombs to detonate when they wanted. Those attacks were facilitated by social media communications. In addition, those attacks were more important than they might suggest on the face of it because they were involved in a connected process of terrorist assaults worldwide. At the same time, the American economy has become utterly dependent on the creativity, the energy, and the efficiency of multimedia technologies and communication systems. The Great Recession, which has had such profound effects on not only American life, but the global economy, is also a result of connectivity. The housing market, which became the dynamic aspect of the American economy in the 1980s and 90s, and led American banks and mortgage companies become increasingly reckless in their loaning of money to people who had no way to pay off their mortgages when they were under stress, led to not only the collapse of the housing market in the United States, but it led to the collapse of the economy as a result of the interconnectedness of banks and mortgage companies and financiers around the world. What started as a housing crisis mushroomed into an economic crisis of global proportions because of the interconnectivity, not only of communications technologies, but of banks and financiers and governments around the world. Connectivity is both a strength and a weakness of modern life. It facilitates communication, yes, but in some respects it makes it more superficial. It enables more efficient economic activity, but it also accelerates that activity and it makes us prone to more mistakes of judgment and risk-taking. It's also a connected century in the sense that social media have become so important to daily life and daily communications, not just in our individual lives, but also in our collective experiences. Businesses, governments, universities, all of them are now increasingly dependent on social media and communication strategies. Think about the Arab awakening of 2011, the ways in which those grassroots democratic uprisings across the Arab world were facilitated and in some respects ignited by social media. The connectivity enabled by social networking and multimedia communication systems was also a major factor in the surprising electoral victory of Obama. Barack Obama very shrewdly took advantage of social networking to raise a vast amount of money from a lot of people. A grassroots financing of a campaign was unprecedented at that scale, and it was one of the most important factors in explaining the victory of Barack Obama in the 2008 election. The Tea Party, organized by conservatives very upset about the direction of American society, and in particular, the way in which deficit spending has run amok at the governmental levels, local, state, and national, was greatly facilitated by their use of social networking. On the other extreme of the political spectrum, the Occupy Wall Street movement was in some respects enabled by social media and allowing people to connect and learn about a spontaneous gathering in Wall Street, in Manhattan, in New York City. It was very much a reflection of the new power, the communication power afforded by social media. So connectivity can become a force for grassroots democratic expression, but it also can invade our privacy. Like so many things, and especially so many technological innovations, it's both a blessing and a curse. And our continuing challenge is to ensure that such technological innovations become more blessings than burdens to American society and the world.
And so shortly after taking office, I directed Leon Panetta, the director of the CIA, to make the killing or capture of bin Laden the top priority of our war against al-Qaeda, even as we continued our broader efforts to disrupt, dismantle, and defeat his network. Then, last August, after years of painstaking work by our intelligence community, I was briefed on a possible lead to bin Laden. It was far from certain, and it took many months to run this thread to ground. I met repeatedly with my national security team as we developed more information about the possibility that we had located bin Laden hiding within a compound deep inside Pakistan. And finally, last week, I determined that we had enough intelligence to take action and authorized an operation to get Osama bin Laden and bring him to justice. Today, at my direction, the United States launched a targeted operation against that compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. A small team of Americans carried out the operation with extraordinary courage and capability. No Americans were harmed.